things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Hello. Hello. This is My Life DIY, and
hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Ash.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
The Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Are ghosts real?
We had 1,000 hours of continuous communication with the spirit world.
Does time travel actually exist?
The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
You know, sometimes I wonder about reincarnation, don't you?
A 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana.
What would happen if the world found out that aliens were real?
I didn't say disclosure would be easy, but what is the alternative?
To establish a space force as the 6th branch of the armed forces.
We have so many questions and yet so little time, so to have you here, the pleasure is all mine.
Coming to you from a secret mountain cave, hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness, this is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live worldwide from a secret mountain cave hidden high up in the beautifully snow-covered peaks of the Idaho mountains. That's right, we're ripping through the electromagnetic soup, tearing through the atmosphere, and tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing a topic that I have loved for a long time. You know, I rail constantly on the show about scientism, and the worst of the worst that practices scientism is archaeologists, and anything they don't agree with is considered forbidden archaeology. Well, that's what we're going to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Wednesday, February 24th, 2021, on the Dark Wolf's Den Show. But first, today in history. This day in history is actually something that's really well known in the ufology world. Some of you might recognize it. On this day in 1942, ladies and gentlemen, the Battle of Los Angeles took place. This is where a series of aircraft engaged over the city in response to a rumored but false Japanese attack. It would last until morning of the following day. A lot of people think that this was a UFO that set over the base or over California or Los Angeles for the entire evening and just accepted all the shots and did not retaliate. That's the theory in the ufology world, but that crazy event, regardless of what it was, happened on this day in 1942, and that is today's Today in History. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, what an insane event. Nobody knows what really occurred that day. Some chalk it up to mass hysteria, while others say it was a UFO. But the truth, at the moment at least, is forbidden, right? And speaking of forbidden archaeology is something that we all know pretty well. We just usually don't know it by that name. If you've looked into Atlantis at all, you've studied forbidden archaeology. Anything archaeology says is not supposed to exist, like Göbekli Tepe, for instance, that for a long time was forbidden archaeology because they said, there was no way that any other civilization could go back to 12,000 years old. That's why they didn't trust Robert Schoch's dating of the pyramid to 11 to 12,000 years ago. Or, I'm sorry, not the pyramid, the Sphinx, my bad. Anyway, the archaeology didn't trust his dating because they said there's no other civilization ever found from that time. So that must be impossible. Now it's forbidden archaeology. You're forbidden for talking about it in real archaeological circles, right? Well, the problem is they found Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which dated back to around 12,000 years old, which, as we know, and you've heard me say many times on this show, was built before the tools that were supposedly used to build it were actually developed. So when you figure that one out, please let me know. And this is the kind of craziness that archaeologists try to feed us all the time. A narrative that we know is not true. Look at the Great Pyramids in Egypt for any kind of example of that. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce our speaker this evening, Mr. Michael Cremo.
Yeah, I'm a researcher in human origins and antiquity. And the question I'm dealing with is, what is the origin of this human species? Who are we? Where did we come from?
As you know, here on this show, that is a topic that we have touched on a number of times, from both angles, of course. And tonight we're going to look at it from yet another angle.
Today, the most common answer to these fundamental questions comes from the modern followers of Charles Darwin. And they tell us that we are machines made of molecules. You know, we have a purely material origin.
And you guys remember in the beginning of the year, I told you we were going to fight against materialistic scientism at every turn. And we went over the 10 dogmas of science, and I also told you that those would be coming up again throughout the year, and they are going to continue to, especially this one, that materialistic science says we are all just molecules and particles and atoms that have all come together just right to make humans and consciousness and all the things we see. Of course, we all know that the human body is much, much more than just atoms and molecules. You know, there's spirit and consciousness, mind, things like that. Whatever words you want to use, I believe all three are the same. But remember, scientism is what we're talking about, materialistic scientism.
As far as consciousness is concerned, many of them would say, well, consciousness is just a temporary byproduct of complex chemical interactions in the brain. And when those chemicals become disorganized at the time of death, there's no more consciousness, none of that.
And if anyone is interested in that collection of conversations, just go back and listen to our entire catalog for the month of January. Our entire theme that month was consciousness, so I'm not going to dig into that. We'll let us carry on.
From the scientific point of view, we really do need alternative explanations for human origins. But let's first look at what the current theories tell us. They tell us that the first human beings like us came into existence about 150,000 years ago, maybe as much as 200,000 years ago. And the very first apes and monkeys, we're told, only came into existence about 40 million years ago. And before that, there were primitive reptiles and fish and things of that sort.
Of course, we all know what classic scientism, science tells us.
The ancient Sanskrit writings of India and the Sumerian text and the Egyptian text and many other texts of different ancient wisdom traditions tell a different story. The ancient Sanskrit writings of India tell us that humans have always existed on Earth for hundreds of millions of years. And there is some scientific evidence for this. This evidence is not very well known because of what I call a process of knowledge filtration that operates in the world of science.
Which, in my opinion, is just another structure put in place to control a narrative, as we know science is well known for.
We could call that blue box the knowledge filter. What it represents is the dominant consensus among scientists today about this question of human origins. Of course, it's the Darwinian consensus. And evidence that conforms to the consensus will pass through this intellectual filter very easily, which means students will read about it in their textbooks. But if we have evidence that radically contradicts the dominant consensus, it tends to get filtered out, which means we don't hear very much about it.
And not only does scientism try to make it disappear from the textbooks, a lot of times it will try to make the evidence disappear from reality if it's possible. It's not always the case, but a lot of times, if it doesn't fit a narrative, it goes bye-bye. The Smithsonian is well known for helping in that, but that is another topic for another time.
But there is scientific evidence that contradicts the current theories of human origins. I'll give a few examples. This is Virginia Steen McIntyre, a geologist I know personally. When she was a young scientist just beginning her career, she was involved in dating an archaeological site in Mexico called Huayatlaco. The archaeologists found stone tools in the layers of rock, and they wanted to know how old these things were. So they called a team of geologists to the site. Virginia Steen McIntyre and her colleagues used 4 different methods to date the site, and they concluded it must be at least 250,000 years old.
Uh-oh, that presents a problem. If you've been paying attention to the numbers tonight, that presents a problem.
But the archaeologists said that is impossible. According to their theories, there weren't any humans capable of making the tools anywhere on Earth. 250,000 years ago, they had not evolved yet.
Let me remind you that these are the same guys that adamantly said that there was no civilization at all around 11 or 12,000 years ago, and then they found Göbekli Tepe, which they still can't explain. So, yeah, these are the same guys that said it's impossible. And remember, that is a word on this show that we call a dirty word, impossible. There I go cursing again on this show. But anyway, yeah, that is something that they say all the time, oh, it's impossible. Our theories say differently. And you caught that right. Teaching theory is fact. That's what scientism is most well known at. And that's what archaeologists love to do, is theory is fact.
So they refused to publish the age for the site given by their own team of geologists. And that really surprised, Virginia Steen McIntyre. So she and her colleagues decided to independently publish the age for the site. But when they did that, they experienced an extreme negative backlash from their colleagues in the scientific world.
Now, remember, all she's done is report the data that she found as an independent scientist. And independently, her trying to report this data is getting her nothing but backlash from the scientism community of science, right?
Virginia Steen McIntyre wrote to the editor of the journal that published her report, "Not being an anthropologist, I didn't realize how deeply woven into our thought the current theory of human evolution has become. Our work at Huayatlaco has been rejected by most archaeologists because it contradicts that theory, period."
And this is the true nature of scientism. See, real science will accept the evidence, look at all the evidence, and find out what it says, like a real detective would. However, scientism is a belief system, and if the evidence doesn't fit their belief or their theory, then they must make it go bye-bye because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Another case. In 1979, Mary Leakey found footprints at a place called Laetoli in the country of Tanzania in East Africa.
Wow, those are some big names. I hope you guys were listening. There will be a test later on that. Just kidding. Or am I?
The footprints were found in layers of volcanic ash, about 3,700,000 years old.
Okay, at 3 million years, there's no way that it could be a human footprint. He just said footprints, right? What kind of footprint was found in this 3 million year old volcanic ash?
In her original report, Mary Leakey said, "These footprints are exactly like modern human footprints." Other scientists also agreed. Paleontologist Tim White. Make no mistake about it, they are like modern human footprints. Now, neither Mary Leakey nor Tim White believed that humans like us made those footprints. They were both evolutionists. According to their way of thinking, there weren't any humans like us present almost 4 million years ago. So how did they explain the footprints? Well, they said there must have existed some type of ape man who had feet exactly like modern human feet, and that's how the footprints got made. I kind of laughed too when I first heard that.
Well, apparently Bigfoot's been around a lot longer than any of us realized, huh? No matter he's the hide-and-seek winner. Him and Nessie, right? But seriously, that has got to be one of the goofiest explanations I've come up with. But you got to leave goofy explanation to the scientism guys. They are the best at it. I will give them that.
Now, it's an interesting speculation, but there's no scientific evidence to support it. We have the skeletons of the ape men who existed at that time. They're called Australopithecus. And the foot structure of Australopithecus is not like that of a modern human being. It's like that of a chimpanzee with very long toes, sort of like human fingers, and a very long first toe that can move out to the side like a human thumb.
Wah, wah, wah. Looks like their theory's blown way out of the water by the actual scientific evidence that exists. Oops, must have forgot about that.
The only creature known to science today that has a foot exactly like a modern human foot is a human being like ourselves. So what did Mary Leakey actually find? I think she found evidence that humans like us were existing almost 4 million years ago on this planet.
And do you remember earlier he mentioned that the Vedic texts say that we've been here for millions of years also, so it sounds like the evidence is stacking more towards that side, huh?
Now some people might say, well, it would be better if you had human skeletons 4 million years old. Such things do exist.
Wait, what do you mean they do exist? You've got my attention.
In the 19th century, the Italian geologist, Dr. Ragazzoni, found human skeletons at a place called Castanedolo in northern Italy in the foothills of the Alps. This is the skull cap from one of those human skeletons. He found them in layers of rock 4 million years old.
Wow, how interesting that that date comes up once again, that 4 million year old date.
So my point is, there is evidence that contradicts the current theories of human origin. So that means we could think about some alternatives. And I believe that before we even ask the question, where did human beings come from, we should first of all ask the question, what is a human being? Now today, many scientists are going to say a human being or any other living thing is just a machine made of molecules. We're purely material beings. That's all there is to it. But I believe that we are a combination of three things: matter, mind, and consciousness. And when I speak of mind and consciousness, I do not mean temporary byproducts of bioelectrical activity in the brain. I mean real things with their own independent existence and their own real powers.
Now, I'm usually saying that mind and consciousness are the same thing, so let's hear what Michael has to say on the topic.
Now, when some scientists hear this, they say, wait a minute, that's not how we do science. We don't start introducing all kinds of strange new substances into our picture of scientific reality. You know, we should try to explain everything in terms of what we know. What we know is matter.
Which I find absolutely hilarious, because if you ask scientists about like cosmology, they start talking about dark energy and dark matter, and you ask them what that is. Well, it's invisible and we really don't know what it is, but we made it up to make the numbers work. But yet we don't introduce things like that into science, right? These are such hypocrites, guys. The scientism belief system is horribly corrupt.
Now, mind is something like air. We can't see air, but when air moves over an element we can see, like water, we can observe its effects. We can see waves forming on the surface of the water. So we can't see mind, but some scientists have observed the very unusual effects of mind on ordinary matter. And I'll give some examples. This is Alfred Russel Wallace. He was, along with Darwin, the co-founder of the theory of evolution by natural selection. For a long time, the theory was called the Wallace-Darwin theory, but eventually his name was dropped from the theory, and I'll tell you why. He became involved in research into the paranormal. Darwin was very upset with him. He said, "You're going to murder our child, the theory of evolution, by getting into these things."
And it goes to show once again what happens when you go against the narrative of the scientism belief system. It's horrible what happens to scientists who don't toe the party line and actually dare to speak out with evidence. They're completely ridiculed and smeared and publicly made a laughingstock of, when in actuality they're telling the truth the whole time. It's a new version of burning at the stake that hasn't ended just because you question the, quote, accepted scientific paradigm. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take a network break a little early right here, so we'll have a little extra time in the second half to cover this amazing topic. So we will be right back with the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den show, as we'll dig down deeper into the actual forbidden archaeology right after these short messages. Don't you touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Ow! That howl means your weekend has officially begun. Give yourselves a round of applause for being smart enough to be here. Hi, everyone. It's AJ, the Ripon Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show with host Jerry Hicks as much as I am? If you are and you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. We're here every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, bringing you the very best of common sense radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. Make sure that you join Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den show again tomorrow night, Thursday, February 25th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. He'll howl at Antarctica. I can't wait to see where the show goes tomorrow night, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. All shows at the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. I'll return again Friday night, February 26th, as we explore treasure hunting. One man's junk is another man's treasure. Come along with me as we explore through the modern age of treasure hunting. That's Friday, February 26th. Then Saturday night, the 27th, explore the instrument that is the human body. I can't wait. We're going to dive down the rabbit hole of the human instrument regarding beatboxing, singing, and of course, how we can tune our body to be a finely tuned instrument and benefit us in 2021. Then we'll end out the weekend right, Sunday, February 28th, with jealousy. Come along with me and dive down the rabbit hole of jealousy. We're going to look at ways to deflect jealousy, and believe it or not, ways to embrace it. It's a wonderful way to end out the weekend right together with you. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the weekend ahead. That's right. Normally, we send out our weekend update email. And today, for whatever reason, MailChimp did not want to agree to sending out our weekly schedule. But nevertheless, now you know it. And it's posted under Listen Live at riponrabbithole.com. You can find updates and latest information there. We'll return you back now to Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den show for Wednesday, February 24th.
This is My Life DIY, and
Hi, this is JoJo.
Hi, my name is Ash.
Hey everybody, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light.
And you're now listening
to Dark Wolf's Den.
The Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. Whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about forbidden science and forbidden archaeology. And this is one of my favorite topics, like I said. And one of my favorite things about this topic is something called OOPArts, which stands for Out of Place Artifacts. And you guys definitely are going to enjoy this. These are artifacts that are not supposed to be in the time frame in which they are supposedly found. Archaeologists do not like to discuss OOPArts and will do everything they can to avoid these embarrassing moments of science. And these are what really have become the epitome of forbidden archaeology.
The accepted scientific view of evolution in the Cenozoic era shows human beings appearing on the Earth about 1.6 million years ago, and human civilization just 10,000 years ago. Yet the scientific finds presented here present a very shocking and different story. Let us look at the Pleistocene Epoch finds. Copper coin from Illinois, over 200,000 years old. This rendition of a coin-like object from a well boring near Lawn Ridge, Illinois, was found at a depth of about 114 feet below the surface. According to the information supplied by the Illinois State Geological Survey, the deposits containing the coin are between 200,000 and 400,000 years old. Who left this coin hundreds of thousands of years before civilized man evolved?
Let alone long before we're told man was ever on the American continent.
Modern human skeleton from Tanzania, over 800,000 years old. In 1913, Professor Hans Reck of Berlin University conducted investigations at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, then Germany's Africa. During his stay at Olduvai Gorge, Reck found a modern human skeleton that remains a source of mystery and controversy to this day.
And what exactly makes it so controversial?
The modern skull is from a fully human skeleton found that year. The human skeletal remains, including this complete skull, were cemented in the rock and had to be chipped with hammers and chisels. It was found in the upper end of a rock bed dated at more than 1 million years old. How did this modern human find his way 1 million years into the past?
Now, how's that for an out-of-place artifact? An actual human being in the wrong time, right?
Willendorf Venus Slate, over 30,000 years old. The Willendorf Venus from Europe, dated at 30,000 years old. Who created or left this artifact nearly 20,000 years before human civilization appeared?
That one is really hard to explain because, once again, humans weren't supposed to be here to make it to begin with.
Modern human skull in Buenos Aires, over 1 million years old. In 1896, workers excavating a dry dock in Buenos Aires found a modern human skull. The pre-Encenidan stratum in which the Buenos Aires skull was found is at least 1 to 1.5 million years old. Even at 1 million years, the presence of a fully modern human skull anywhere in the world is highly anomalous. Why and how did a modern human arrive in Buenos Aires over 1 million years ahead of its time?
And once again, remember that is ahead of its time according to what scientism, archaeology scientism, tells us the time frames are supposed to be.
The Pliocene Epoch finds figurines from Nampa, Idaho, about 2 million years old.
And this is kind of exciting because there's been recently a find that redates a lot of the history of mankind that was also done in Idaho. And I can tell you both of those locations, that one and the one we're about to hear about, is within a couple of hours from my location. So that's interesting. I might have to go do some digging around here in the state of Idaho, right?
A small human image skillfully formed in clay was found in 1889 in Nampa, Idaho. The figurine came from the 300-foot level of a well boring and dated to the Pleistocene age, about 2 million years old, G.F. Wright noted. The image is about 1.5 inches long and remarkable for the perfection with which it represents the human form. It was a female figure and had the lifelike lineaments in the parts which were finished that would do credit to this classic centers of art. Upon showing the object to Professor F.W. Putnam, wrote Wright, he at once directed attention to the character of the incrustations of iron upon the surface as indicative of a relic of considerable antiquity. There were patches of anhydrous red oxide of iron in protected places upon it, such as could not have been formed upon any fraudulent object. Humans had not even evolved on this planet 2 million years ago. So who created or left this artifact in Earth's distant past?
Once again, according to scientism and the numbers we're given, humankind wasn't around back then.
Modern human skull found in Italy, over 3 to 4 million years old. Late in the summer of 1860, Professor Giuseppe Ragazzoni, a geologist and teacher at the Technical Institute of Brescia, traveled to the nearby locale of Castanodolo, about 10 kilometers southeast of Brescia, to gather fossil shells in the Pliocene strata exposed in a pit at the base of a low hill, the Calle di Vento. Here he discovered this remarkable and anatomically modern human skull. The stratum from which it was taken is assigned to the Astian stage of the Pliocene. According to modern authorities, the Astian belongs to the Middle Pliocene, which would give the skull an age of 3 to 4 million years. Why and how did this modern human visit Italy nearly 2 million years before human beings walked the planet?
It amazes me how many of these human remains are being found in the wrong time period.
Carved shell from the Red Crag, England, between 2 and 2.5 million years old. In a report delivered to the British Association for the Advancement of Science in 1881, H. Stopes, FGS, Fellow of the Geological Society, described a shell the surface of which bore a carving of a crude but unmistakable human face. The carved shell was found in the stratified deposits of the Red Crag. The Red Crag, part of which is called the Walton Crag, is dated to be of late Pliocene age between 2 and 2.5 million years old. This find would place intelligent beings in England as far as 2 million and maybe as much as 2.5 million years ago. One should keep in mind that in terms of conventional paleoanthropological opinion, one does not encounter such works of art until the time of fully modern Cro-Magnon man in the late Pleistocene, about 30,000 years ago. What visitor to Earth's distant past carved and left this shell?
And this one, I'm going to have to give it up to chance and say that because it was, as they said, a crude version of a human face, I would dare say it could just be a pareidolia incident. Not something I like to talk about very often, but, I mean, in some cases, we have to be honest and, and that's my opinion. If you go and research it, you might have a different opinion, but I think that's one that we can actually check out of the list. But there's not a lot of them that we can clear off, like this next one, for instance.
The Eocene Epoch finds. Chalk ball near Lyon, France, 45 to 55 million years old. The April 1862 edition of The Geologist included an English translation of an intriguing report by Maximilien Melville, the vice president of the Société Académique of Lyon, France. This chalk ball was discovered in an early Eocene lignite bed. Based on its stratigraphic position, it's been assigned a date of 45 to 55 million years ago. According to Melville, there was no possibility that the chalk ball was a forgery. It really is penetrated over 4/5 of its height by a black bituminous color that merges towards the top into a yellow circle, which is evidently due to the contact of the lignite in which it had been for so long a time plunged. The upper part, which is in contact with the shell bed, or the contrary, has preserved its natural color, the dull white of the chalk. As to the rock in which it was found, I can affirm that it's perfectly virgin and presents no trace whatever of any ancient exploitation. As extraordinary as it might seem to find those attached to standard evolutionary views, the evidence associated in this find suggests that if humans made the ball, they must have been in France 45 to 55 million years ago. Who made and left this man-made artifact in our past long before human evolution, even before grazing and carnivorous mammals walked the planet?
And I almost did a show tonight on the mysterious stone spheres and balls found across the world, and I may do that next week, but it will be coming up pretty soon in the schedule, that I can guarantee.
Mortar and pestle in California, up to 55 million years old. In 1877, Mr. J.H. Neal was superintendent of the Montezuma Tunnel Company and ran the Montezuma Tunnel into the gravel underlying the lava of Table Mountain, Tuolumne County. At between 1,400 and 1,500 feet from the mouth of the tunnel, or of between 200 and 300 feet beyond the edge of the solid lava, Mr. Neal saw several spearheads of some dark rock and nearly 1 foot in length. On exploring further, he himself found a small mortar 3 or 4 inches in diameter and of irregular shape. This was discovered within a foot or 2 of the spearheads. He then found a large, well-formed pestle and nearby a large and very regular mortar. All of these relics were found the same afternoon and were all within a few feet of one another and close to the bedrock, perhaps within a foot of it. Mr. Neal declares that it's utterly impossible that these relics can have reached the position in which they were found, excepting at the time the gravel was deposited and before the lava cap formed. The position of the artifacts in gravel close to the bedrock at Tuolumne Table Mountain indicates they were 33 to 55 million years old. Grazing and carnivorous mammals had not even evolved on the planet at this time. So who brought and left behind these artifacts in California nearly 50 million years ago?
You know, you can only hear so many case files where the evidence just becomes more than overwhelming, right? And we're not done yet. We've got just a couple more case files to go over that are just baffling to archaeologists. Archaeologists hate these case files. These are things they would like to pretend do not exist, and a lot of them do pretend they don't exist, right?
The Mesozoic Era proof. The Mesozoic Era is one of the major divisions of geological history, following the Paleozoic Era and preceding the Cenozoic Era. The Mesozoic Era, which lasted from approximately 240 million to 65 million years ago, may be characterized as the Age of Reptiles because their greatest development occurred during this era. The first birds and mammals and the first flowering plants also appeared at this time.
According to the accepted scientism narrative.
The Mesozoic Era is divided into 3 time periods: the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. As we move back into time, we enter a period in the Mesozoic Era that began with the first dinosaurs appearing on Earth and ended with the development of flowering plants. Humans wouldn't evolve for at least another 136 million years. Yet the scientific finds below suggest proof that advanced civilizations were in Earth's past and walking at a time when dinosaurs roamed the Earth.
And of course, we are always taught that man and dinosaur did not coexist together. However, there's another pile of evidence here.
The Triassic period. Shoe sole from Nevada dated 213 to 248 million years ago. On October 8, 1922, the American Weekly section of the New York Sunday American ran a prominent feature titled Mystery of the Petrified Shoe Sole by Dr. W.H. Ballou. Ballou wrote, "Some time ago, while he was prospecting for fossils in Nevada, John T. Reed, a distinguished mining engineer and geologist, stopped suddenly and looked down in utter bewilderment and amazement at a rock near his feet. For there, a part of the rock itself was what seemed to be a human footprint. Closer inspection shows that it was not the mark of a naked foot, but was apparently a shoe sole which had been turned into stone. The forepart was missing. But there was the outline of at least 2/3 of it, and around this outline ran a well-defined sewn thread which had, it appeared, attached the welt to the sole. Further on was another line of sewing, and in the center where the foot would have rested had the object really been a shoe sole, there was an indentation, exactly such as there would have been, made by the bone of the heel rubbing upon and wearing down the material of which the sole had been made. Reed got a hold of a microphotographer and an analytical chemist of the Rockefeller Institute, who made photos and analysis of the specimen. The analysis removed any doubt of the shoe sole having been subjected to Triassic fossilization. The microphoto magnifications are 20 times larger than the specimen itself, showing the minutest detail of thread twist and warp, proving conclusively that the shoe sole is not a resemblance, but is strictly the handiwork of man. Even to the naked eye, the threads can be seen distinctly, along with the symmetrical outlines of the shoe sole. Inside this rim and running parallel to it is a line which appears to be regularly perforated as if for stitches.
So how old was this artifact?
The Triassic rock bearing the fossil shoe sole is now recognized as being 213 to 248 million years old. An obviously modern shoe, complete with stitching and etched in time in Triassic rock. What modern visitor was walking in our distant past more than 210 million years ago, before the age of the dinosaurs?
And I would like to point out once again that every one of these have been independently verified by scientists who are willing to do real science and not follow the scientism narrative. And that just amazes me. Even if it's geologists that base it just on the rock layers and the level and depth in which these things are found, still hundreds of millions of years is just absolutely insane. Compared to what scientism tells us anyway. It blows my mind how much scientific proof is actually here, and they just absolutely ignore.
Gold chain from Morrisville, Illinois, 260 to 320 million years old. On June 11, 1891, the Morrisville Times reported, "A curious find was brought to light by Mrs. S. W. Culp last Tuesday morning. As she was breaking a lump of coal preparatory to putting it in the scuttle, she discovered, as the lump fell apart, embedded in a circular shape, a small gold chain, about 10 inches in length, of antique and quaint workmanship. At first, Mrs. Culp thought the chain had been dropped accidentally in the coal,
which makes logical sense. Any reasonable person would assume it was just, somebody very recently dropped it into it, right? Right.
But as she undertook to lift the chain up, the idea of it having been recently dropped was at once made fallacious, for as the lump of coal broke, it separated almost in the middle, and the circular portion of the chain placed the two ends near to each other. And as the lump separated, the middle of the chain became loosened, while each end remained fastened to the coal. The lump of coal from which this chain was taken is supposed to come from the Taylorville or Panna mines, southern Illinois, and almost hushes one's breath with mystery when it's thought for how many long ages the Earth has been forming strata after strata which hid the golden links from view. The chain was an 8-karat gold and weighed 8 pennyweights. The Illinois State Geological Survey has said the coal in which the gold chain was found is 260 to 320 million years old. This raises the possibility that culturally advanced human beings were present or visiting in North America during that time. How did this gold chain find itself left behind in Earth's distant past, more than 250 million years before humans had evolved?
Though not quite as old, that story reminds me of the story we've presented before of the ring watch that was found in the tomb of a Chinese emperor that was thousands of years old and much older than the actual creation of the ring watch to begin with. So, I mean, it kind of reminded me of that story, that, you know, just these different artifacts that show up in the wrong time, albeit the right place perhaps, still the wrong time frame.
Carved stone near Webster, Iowa, 260 to 320 million years old. The April 2nd, 1897 edition of the Daily News of Omaha, Nebraska carried an article titled "Carved Stone Buried in a Mine," which described an object from a mine near Webster City, Iowa. The article stated, "While mining coal today in the Lehigh coal mine at a depth of 130 feet, one of the miners came upon a piece of rock which puzzles him, and he was unable to account for its presence at the bottom of the coal mine. The stone is of a dark gray color and about 2 feet long, 1 foot wide and 4 inches in thickness. Over the surface of the stone, which is very hard, lines are drawn at angles forming perfect diamonds. The center of each diamond is a good face of an old man having a peculiar indentation in the forehead that appears in each of the pictures, all of them being remarkably alike. Of the faces, all but 2 are looking to the right. Was this stone carved and left behind by an advanced technologist from Earth's past?"
In the second half so far, I've presented a plethora of out-of-place artifacts that are scientifically verified. And it's this evidence that I look at all the time that really, really makes me aggravated at scientism and the narrative that they push, especially, like I said, in the archaeology realm. That is the worst of the worst when it comes to science as a belief system and not as a practice.
Iron cup from Oklahoma coal mine, 312 million years old.
And there's a lot of finds in coal. And it's really hard to dispute that because we know how long it supposedly takes coal to form to begin with. Therefore, it would take a long time to form around an object, of course. And there's been hammers found in coal that are way older than they should have been, as well as a multitude of other objects, as well as this one right here, this cup we're about to hear about.
On November 27th, 1948, the following statement was made by Frank J. Kenwood in Sulphur Springs, Arkansas. "While I was working in the municipal electric plant in Thomas, Oklahoma in 1912, I came upon a solid chunk of coal which was too large to use. I broke it with a sledgehammer. The iron pot fell from the center, leaving the impression mold of the pot in the piece of coal. Jim Stahl, an employee of the company, witnessed the breaking of the coal and saw the pot fall out. I traced the source of the coal and found that it came from the Wilburton, Oklahoma mines. According to Robert O. Fay of the Oklahoma Geological Survey, the Wilburton mine coal is about 312 million years old. What advanced civilization or visitor was creating or using iron pots in our past more than 300 million years ago?"
And I could literally go on for an entire hour like that. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to go through anymore. I think I've provided a pretty big list here. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that the archaeological numbers that we're given are way off, especially including the actual age of mankind and the origins thereof? Or perhaps there was a different version of man that visited the planet all those millions and hundreds of millions of years ago. Or perhaps time travel, right? Perhaps we're finding evidence of time travel. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many possibilities, but one thing's for sure. There's a lot of evidence that the archaeological community refuses to look at because it does not fit their narrative. As Michael Cremo says, it doesn't make it through the knowledge filter, or the little blue box, if you will, that everything is put through, the academic knowledge filter. And when academia finally wakes up to the truth and starts admitting so many truths they've been hiding for so long, it might be a day where we find that humanity has a lot longer history than we have ever known. But that is just my opinion. In the end, ladies and gentlemen, all you can do is look at the proof provided, listen to the evidence, do your own research, and in the end, you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the den may be closing, but don't you worry, the weekend fun is only just begun. That's right. Come back tomorrow, Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for an all-new episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about that frozen land down under called Antarctica. So many mysteries, so little time. So make sure you tune in for that. Then on Friday, February 26th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ the Ripon Rabbit will take back to the airwaves for the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. That's right. On Friday, AJ will be talking about treasure hunting. I have actually gotten into this a little bit myself. I've not found anything, but I have been looking up a lot of lost treasures lately. Definitely going to be a fun episode you guys do not want to miss. Then on Saturday, February 27th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ comes back with another episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. Check this out, guys. You remember in school, some people could burp the national anthem, right? Others could play it on their armpit. Well, is that the only ways the human instrument can make music? Well, make sure you tune in Friday, February 27th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as AJ discusses the human instrument. That's right. I also happen to know that there will be a special on-air experiment that night, and everybody knows how much AJ loves his on-air experiment, so do make sure that you check that out. Then on Sunday, February 28th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ's going to follow up last Sunday's discussion on anger with this Sunday's discussion on jealousy. That's right. Jealousy can be dangerous at times, or it can be helpful. It's one of those emotions like anger that we must be careful how we portray it. That's right. That's going to round out the weekend here on Ripon Common Sense Radio and the RiponRabbitHole.com. So do make sure that you check us out all weekend long. And speaking of the RiponRabbitHole.com, make sure you hop on over there and sign up for our Backstage Pass. That is RiponRabbitHole.com. That's right. Where else do you know that you can get a Backstage Pass and continue to enjoy so much fun? See, first thing you want to do, like I said, is sign up for the Backstage Pass. Once you have that, you're going to be able to unlock all the features of the site. That's right. then you'll be able to join the rest of the rabbits over there on the riponrabbithole.com and drop down the rabbit hole. That's right, that is our social media alternative over there where the conversation continues 24/7. That's right. And speaking of 24/7, do make sure you check out our 24/7 Backstage Lounge. That's where you're going to find me here in just a couple minutes after the show, and we would love to see you guys over there where we're going to hang out some more and continue to discuss a large variety of topics. That's right. That's also where you're going to find the Tuesday night videos. Once a month, Mr. CSFL Champion, our current reigning king here, the riponrabbithole.com. The Fantastic Fun King will be hosting once a month Tuesday night videos. These are videos that are music videos that'll be playing, and usually they have a really awesome theme. So make sure you check that out on Tuesday nights once a month. And if you want to know when that is, make sure you have signed up for our newsletter over there, where you're going to receive a letter every Wednesday with all the information in it for the week, from the TVN's Tuesday night videos to the Dark Wolf's Den shows to the Ripon Rabbit Holes. All the information is going to be there for you to know what we'll be talking about all weekend long and what kind of fun stuff is going on at the riponrabbithole.com, because there's always something fun when it comes to the rabbits. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of fun, I'm going to go on over, like I said, to the 24/7 Backstage Lounge and have some fun with whoever was going to be over there hanging out. That's right. On behalf of Chick Mandela Effect, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Musco, Waldhouse, AJ the Ripon Rabbit, everyone at Ripon Common Sense Radio, as well as our amazing mod team. My name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And remember, until next time, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. Oh, yeah. That's right.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.